For countless ages there existed an ancient art, a practice so profound in its ability to transform the human spirit that it was shrouded in secrecy, not because it failed to work, but precisely because it worked too well. Imagine this for a moment, a key from the earliest days of wisdom misplaced among the forgotten sands of history. This key was not forged from metal but from understanding, designed to unlock the most sacred chamber of all, the timeless memory of your soul. This practice does not introduce anything new to your being. Instead, it peels away the countless layers that have been placed upon your essence. The greatest deception ever played upon humanity was not simply keeping us ignorant, but making us believe we were something we are not. Now imagine, what if today, this very day, you could remember why you came here? What if instead of constantly searching outward in books, voices, or gurus, you discovered an ancient voice within yourself, a voice that has always been there, waiting for you to listen? And what if that voice could be reignited by a process so powerful it was reserved only for a chosen few, guarded from those who might have twisted it into yet another instrument of control? What you're about to hear is not merely a story, not a myth wrapped in metaphor. This is an invitation, a path to reclaiming a forgotten art, not because it is dark or forbidden by its nature, but because it glows too brightly. Those who cling to worldly power fear an awakened soul far more than they fear an army of the sleeping. In the moments ahead, we will explore this hidden art, tracing its origins through lost temples of wisdom, examining why it was buried beneath centuries of distortion, ridicule, and suppression. We will explore how you today can reclaim it, not in theory but as a living experience. You will not be handed an identity or a new story. You will reawaken a vibration, an eternal luminous consciousness that has always been your core. Through the use of symbolic language, timeless philosophy, and stories that echo across the ages, we will strip away the illusions and return to the essence of what matters most. This is not an academic lesson. This is an inward journey for those who choose to listen with more than their ears. For this practice is not something you will memorize or master by intellect. It is something you will feel, awaken, and most of all, remember. If you are willing to peer beneath the surface, to challenge what you have been taught about your own being, and to move toward the truth your soul has always carried, then what you hear next may be the spark your spirit has long awaited. Remember, what is labeled forbidden is not always dangerous. Often, it is merely too powerful to be shared openly. Across cultures and through the annals of time, a quiet message persists, passed through hushed whispers and sacred symbols. It speaks of how humankind has forgotten its true essence, how life, as it is commonly perceived, is but a veil, an illusory dream masking our deeper reality. And yet beneath this fog, paths exist. Practices designed not to teach us more but to help us remember. Here lies the mystery. These practices were not meant for public schools or textbooks. They were carefully shielded, outlawed, or twisted beyond recognition. They were hidden beneath superstitions, wrapped in ridicule, or encoded in myth so that few could access their original power. Take ancient Egypt, for example. In secret halls known as houses of life, priests guided initiates through profound rites, experiences meant to symbolically release the initiate from the body and walk them through subtle spiritual realms. Upon returning, they were changed, as if awakening from a long, empty dream. They had remembered something lost to most. In Greece, the Orphic mysteries taught that the soul was trapped, not in punishment, but as part of a sacred purification. Breathing techniques, chants rituals, and deep trance states were used to temporarily free the soul from its earthly mask, allowing it to glimpse its divine source. Such an experience was not easily forgotten. It reshaped the very fabric of one's life. In the East, Indian rishis spoke of a sacred act called Smirana, remembering that which the soul already knows. Ignorance, they taught, was not the absence of information, but disconnection from this eternal knowing. The path back required no accumulation of knowledge, but rather unlearning, practicing stillness, refining inner vibration, and tuning consciousness to its original state. Despite differences in outward practice, the essence of this path remained the same: remembrance, not acquisition; rediscovery, not invention. Yet then came a dark age. Dogma arose. Rigid systems sought to institutionalize the inner journey. What was once a vibrant, living art became ritual without meaning. Its deeper purpose buried or labeled dangerous, and dangerous it was, not to the individual, but to the structures of control. For a soul that remembers cannot be ruled. Today, a profound shift is occurring. This ancient wisdom is resurfacing, not as a novelty, but as an echo, a vibration stirring within those ready to receive it. The most astonishing truth is this: the so-called forbidden technique lies within you even now, nestled in the deepest chambers of your awareness, waiting for recognition. To grasp the power of this art, we must first let go of a deeply ingrained misconception. The soul does not need to learn who it is; it already knows. What is required is remembrance. This remembrance is not achieved through reasoning, but through resonance, a subtle vibratory shift that peels away illusion and reveals the authentic self. When this inner frequency is activated, the false layers begin to dissolve. What is true emerges, not as a thought, but as a living presence. How is this frequency reached? The technique is not a ritual of words or scripted behavior. It is a living process, an alignment of body, mind, energy, and awareness. Through this harmonization, the soul's memory begins to awaken, not in abstract terms, but as direct experience. Visualize your soul as a pure, radiant tone, now obscured by layers of noise, beliefs imposed upon you, unhealed wounds, societal conditioning. This practice does not seek to add anything to you. Rather, it clears away what distorts the tone so that your original resonance may sound once more. This path unfolds in phases, though not bound to linear progression. Each phase is essential. The first involves releasing the false self. This is perhaps the most challenging task. It demands that you become an observer of your inner world, questioning every voice and impulse. Are these thoughts truly yours, or have they been grafted onto you by others? As false constructs are seen clearly, they begin to lose their grip. Next comes the awakening of an inner sense, a mode of perception beyond logic and emotion. You do not force this sense awake, you attune to it. Breath awareness, ritual stillness, full embodiment, and the conscious use of universal symbols serve as bridges to this state. The imagination in this context is not fantasy, it is a sacred tool. Focused visualization of timeless symbols, a flame within the heart, a mirror of the soul, a blooming lotus, can catalyze profound reconnection. These are not inventions of the mind, they are keys to ancient doorways within your being. Finally, there is the resonance of your true vibration. In every spiritual tradition, there are references to a hidden name, not a word, but a unique frequency. When you embody this resonance, not through language, but through presence, you know beyond doubt who you are. It is a remembering not of the mind, but of the entire being, a certainty that transcends thought. Such transformation is neither quick nor effortless. It requires honesty, persistence, and a deep commitment to truth. Yet, as the process unfolds, an irreversible shift takes place. A deeper, more authentic awareness begins to witness your life from within, a center untouched by circumstance. At this point, the true path begins. Layers of illusion continue to fall away. Your soul remembers, not through intellectual effort, but as a rising presence, like light entering a long-closed chamber. The you that emerges is not new. It is the timeless you, long obscured. Yet this awakening also brings forth what lies in shadow. You will face unhealed wounds, forgotten choices, and aspects of self you may have long denied. This is not punishment, it is liberation. For only by embracing all of your being can true remembrance take hold. Many ancient teachings warn that this path, while luminous, is not for the faint of heart. To gaze fully upon the soul requires spiritual maturity, not measured by age, but by willingness to confront truth without flinching. Those who persevere often enter a state of expanded awareness, not a trance of forgetfulness, but a heightened perception where the soul leads and the ego yields. One remains grounded in the body, yet sees life from a new vantage. Thought no longer dominates. Awareness deepens. In this state, emotions clarify, intuition strengthens, and subtle memories, perhaps from lifetimes past, arise naturally. You begin to live from a new center, one no longer bound by masks or the need for external validation. This is the true heart of the practice, not a temporary experience, but an ongoing state of being. Life transforms not through force, but through alignment with your most authentic resonance. The paradox is this: the soul does not discover its identity, it remembers. And when it does, that remembering reshapes your entire existence. When the soul begins to remember itself, an extraordinary shift unfolds, not outwardly, but deep within the very core of your being. This is not a fleeting epiphany or a surge of intellectual clarity. It is a steady, growing presence, a vibration that says without words, "This is who I am, and I always have been." And yet this emergence is just the beginning of a profound inner journey. It does not conclude the process, but rather initiates a new way of living. For once the soul stirs from its slumber, life itself becomes the canvas upon which this remembrance must be expressed. Living from this awakened state is not about withdrawing from the world or escaping into mystical realms. It is about embodying that sacred memory through the simplest, most ordinary acts of daily life. In fact, that is where the real challenge and the real power lies. We live in a world of endless distractions, noise that constantly tries to draw us back into forgetfulness. The ego clings to its old patterns, the mind resists the unfamiliar stillness, and the external world continuously reinforces false narratives about who we are supposed to be. Thus, the practice of remembrance must become a way of life, not an occasional retreat, but an ongoing choice, moment by moment. The art is not in removing yourself from the world, but in remaining deeply awake within it. The first element of this living remembrance is the cultivation of profound silence, not merely an absence of sound, but a rich, attentive stillness that allows the subtle voice of your soul to be heard. Each day offers an opportunity to enter this sacred space, even if only for a few breaths. During these moments, there is no need to seek visions or force insights. The task is simply to be, to allow your awareness to rest fully in the present, without striving or expectation. It is in this unguarded openness that the deeper layers of your being begin to resonate more clearly. From this foundation of inner stillness arises the second practice, bringing conscious presence into all your actions. Eating, walking, speaking, even the smallest gestures. Each can become an expression of your soul's remembering if performed with full attention and integrity. Rather than rushing through life on autopilot, you begin to inhabit each moment with reverence, as if each act were a sacred ritual. This does not mean you must become solemn or serious. On the contrary, There is often great joy and lightness in this way of living. The key is presence, moving through life aligned with your deepest truth rather than the conditioned patterns of the false self. This also calls for great discernment in what you allow to enter your mind and shape your inner landscape. In a world overflowing with empty noise, media, gossip, meaningless chatter, it is essential to guard the gates of your consciousness carefully. Every word you hear, every image you see, every conversation you engage in leaves an imprint upon your vibration. If these inputs reinforce forgetfulness and false identity, they will cloud the resonance of your soul's memory. If they uplift and align with truth, they will nourish your awakening. Thus, part of the path is a kind of inner purification, clearing away not only the mental clutter, but also the emotional residue that keeps you tethered to illusion. It is a gentle yet firm discipline, like tending a sacred fire. Another vital element is conscious speech. In a culture that prizes endless talking, much of it hollow and reactive, the awakened soul learns the power of speaking from deep within. When you speak from remembrance, your words carry a different vibration. They resonate with authenticity and subtle power. You are no longer speaking to impress, defend, or conform, but to express truth. And often you will find that fewer words are needed when they come from this depth. Moreover, acting as if you already embody your soul's full remembrance, even if you have not yet fully realized it, can be a powerful catalyst. This is not about pretending or adopting a spiritual persona. It is about aligning your actions with the highest vision of who you are becoming. When you walk, speak, and love from this place of intention, the soul responds. It recognizes that you are preparing a space for it to shine through more fully. Doubt and hesitation contract the field of remembrance. Courage and trust expand it. And remember, this process is not linear. It is not a staircase you climb once, reaching a final peak. Rather, it is a spiral, deepening and widening over time. Moments of clarity may alternate with periods of confusion. Waves of joy may be followed by old shadows rising to the surface. This is natural and necessary, for to truly remember, you must integrate all parts of yourself, not only the luminous aspects, but also the wounded, forgotten, and disowned fragments. The soul's light illuminates everything, not just the easy or beautiful parts. In facing these inner shadows with compassion and courage, you free them from the grip of unconsciousness. Each fragment that is met and integrated becomes part of your wholeness, strengthening the resonance of your true being. There will be times when this path feels lonely. Not everyone around you will understand or support this deep inner work. You may find that certain relationships or environments no longer resonate with your evolving vibration. This too is part of the process. As you remember more fully who you are, life naturally rearranges itself around this new center. Old patterns fall away. New connections emerge, often with those who are also walking the path of remembrance. Community, when found in authenticity, can be a great support, but ultimately, this is a solitary path in the deepest sense. No one can walk it for you. No teacher, no teaching can replace your own direct experience. Trust that your soul knows the way. It has walked this path before. What is required is not more learning, but deeper listening. The wisdom you seek is already within you, awaiting your readiness to receive it. And with each step, as the layers fall away, the vibration of your true nature grows stronger, more stable. You begin to see the world through new eyes, not as a place of lack and fear, but as a field of possibility, a mirror reflecting your own awakening. You stop needing to prove or defend yourself. The old compulsions driven by ego begin to dissolve. In their place arises a quiet confidence, a grounded presence. You know who you are, not as an idea, but as a living, breathing reality. And with this knowing comes a profound compassion for yourself, for others, for the entire human experience. You see how deeply we have all been conditioned to forget, to shrink from our true nature. And you understand that beneath every mask, every distortion, lies the same spark of divine remembrance. This changes everything. You no longer relate to others from a place of judgment or superiority, but from a deep recognition of shared essence. Even those who seem most lost are not separate from this truth. They too are on their path, in their own way and time. In this state of remembering, love flows naturally, not as a sentimental emotion, but as a radiant force that seeks to include, to heal, to uplift. You begin to serve life not out of obligation, but from an overflowing fullness. And here is the great irony. The more you remember who you are, the less you are preoccupied with yourself. The ego's constant concerns. How am I seen? Am I enough? What do I need to achieve? Fade into the background. In their place arises a spaciousness, a willingness to be a vessel for something greater. You begin to live in alignment with the deeper currents of life, trusting in their intelligence and timing. This is true freedom, not the freedom to do whatever you please, but the freedom to be fully who you are, in harmony with the larger unfolding. And this is why the practice of remembrance was once guarded so carefully. Not because it is harmful, but because it dismantles the structures of control that depend on forgetfulness. An awakened soul is not easily manipulated. It does not fit neatly into the roles and systems designed to keep humanity asleep. Yet the time for secrecy has passed. The world is ready. Indeed, it is hungry for this awakening. The old paradigms are crumbling. The longing for deeper truth is rising in more and more hearts. And so this invitation is offered, not as a doctrine, but as a doorway, a call to turn inward, to listen, to remember. You do not need special abilities or elaborate rituals. You do not need to be perfect. You need only the courage to be present with yourself, to trust the wisdom that arises, to follow where it leads. If this resonates within you, if some part of you stirs in recognition, honor that. It is your soul responding to its own ancient knowing. The path is before you. The next step is yours to take. And as you do remember, you are not learning to become something new. You are remembering what you have always been. As you move further along this path of remembrance, the world around you begins to take on a different hue. What once seemed solid and unchangeable is now fluid, responsive, alive. You realize that life is not a static set of circumstances, but a dynamic dance between your inner state and the unfolding outer experience. The more deeply you anchor in your true self, the more clearly you perceive this dance. Events, relationships, even challenges become mirrors, each reflecting back some aspect of your own vibration. In this way, life itself becomes your teacher, your ally in the process of awakening. Yet this is not about magical thinking or bypassing life's difficulties. It is about meeting reality with eyes wide open, from a place of deep presence. Pain is still pain, loss is still loss, but you relate to these experiences differently, not as a victim, but as a conscious participant in the great unfolding. There is a profound humility that arises from this stance. You begin to see how vast and mysterious the web of existence truly is, how little can be controlled or predicted, and yet, within this surrender lies great power, the power to align with life's deeper currents rather than struggle against them. In this alignment, synchronicities become more frequent. Insights arise seemingly from nowhere. The right people, opportunities, and resources show up at the perfect moment, not because you are forcing them to, but because you are resonating at a frequency that naturally draws them in. This is not about passive waiting. It is about active trust, living in a state of attunement, following the subtle impulses of your deeper wisdom, acting when called, resting when needed. And as you walk this way, a new quality of awareness emerges, one that is both expansive and intimate. You begin to sense the interconnectedness of all things. The boundaries between self and other, inner and outer, become more porous. You feel the pulse of life in the wind, the trees, the eyes of a stranger. You recognize the same spark of being that animates you shining everywhere. This recognition births a profound reverence, a sacred regard for all forms of life. Compassion deepens, not as a moral obligation, but as a natural expression of your interconnectedness. You see the pain of others not as separate from your own, but as part of the collective human journey. And from this seeing arises a desire to alleviate suffering wherever you can, not to fix the world, but to bring the light of remembrance wherever you are. This is how true change happens, not through force or ideology, but through the silent revolution of awakened hearts. One person living from their true nature can ripple out in ways unimaginable, touching lives far beyond their immediate circle. And the beauty is that this is available to everyone. There is no hierarchy in remembrance. No soul is more worthy or capable than another. The differences lie only in readiness, in willingness to turn inward and face what is found there. For this is not always an easy path. As the light of remembrance grows stronger, it illuminates not only the beautiful aspects of your being, but also the hidden wounds, the conditioned patterns, the unhealed places. These must be met with great courage and tenderness. The tendency is often to avoid or bypass this inner work, to seek only the light and deny the shadow. But true wholeness requires embracing all of who you are, integrating every fragment into the circle of your being. This is where the deepest alchemy occurs, where the densest, most painful aspects of your experience are transmuted through presence and love, not by rejecting them, but by bringing them fully into the light of awareness. And in this process, you discover a great paradox, that your deepest wounds, when embraced and healed, become sources of your greatest wisdom and compassion. They become bridges through which you can connect with and support others on their journey. Thus, the path of remembrance is not about escaping the human experience, but about fully inhabiting it with clarity and grace. It is about bringing your awakened presence into every corner of life, work, relationships, creativity, service. No area is too mundane or too sacred. All of life becomes the field of your practice. The soul's light shines not only in meditation or spiritual study, but in how you speak to a child, how you prepare a meal, how you navigate conflict, how you meet each moment. And the more consistently you live from this place, the more stable your remembrance becomes. It moves from fleeting glimpses to a steady presence, a quiet background awareness that infuses all you do. This is not a state of constant bliss or perfection. The human experience will always include waves of joy and sorrow, clarity and confusion. But beneath these waves, the deep current of your true being remains unshaken. You know who you are, and from this knowing arises an unshakable peace, not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of an inner anchor that nothing can move. This is the gift of remembrance. It frees you from the tyranny of external validation, from the endless striving to become enough. You realize that you have always been enough, not as an egoic identity, but as a unique expression of the infinite. And from this freedom, true creativity flows. You are no longer driven by fear or lack, but by the joy of expressing your deepest truth. Life becomes an art, an unfolding masterpiece painted with the colors of your soul. And here lies the ultimate secret. This state of remembrance is not reserved for a few rare beings. It is your birthright. The spark of divine consciousness that you are has never been absent. It has simply been veiled, waiting patiently for your readiness to see. The so-called forbidden nature of this path lies not in its danger, but in its power to liberate. For a society built on fear and control cannot easily contain awakened souls. They are not easily manipulated. They do not fit into predefined roles. They live from an inner authority that transcends all external systems. And so, the choice before you is simple, though not easy. Will you continue to live from the conditioned patterns of the false self, or will you turn inward and remember who you truly are? No one can make this choice for you. No one can walk this path on your behalf. But if you feel the call, if something within you stirs in recognition, honor it, follow it, trust it. You do not need to have all the answers. You do not need to be perfect. You need only the willingness to begin, to take the first step, and then the next and the next. And as you do, you will find that you are not alone. Others are walking this path alongside you, each in their own way. The more you remember, the more you will recognize your true family, not bound by blood or belief, but by the shared vibration of awakened being. Together, you become part of the quiet revolution that is now sweeping through the world, not a revolution of violence or ideology, but of remembrance. For the greatest act of rebellion in a world built on forgetfulness is to remember who you are, and to live from that truth unapologetically and with great love.
And so I invite you, step into this remembrance. Let it infuse your thoughts, your words, your actions. Let it guide you through the challenges and joys of life.
For in doing so, you do not merely transform yourself. You become a beacon, a living reminder to others of what is possible. And in this way, the world is changed. Not through force, but through the unstoppable light of awakened souls. You are not here to learn something new. You are here to remember, and that remembering has already begun. Now the choice is yours. Will you nurture this spark, let it grow into a steady flame, or will you turn away, back into the familiar shadows of forgetfulness? I trust you know the answer. Somewhere deep within, you already do. And as you walk forward, may you do so with courage, with humility, and with the unshakable knowing that you are, and always have been, a radiant expression of the infinite, remembering itself through you.
Go gently, go boldly, and above all, remember,